My name is Ethan Carter. I consider myself an average guy, standing at 5 feet 9 inches and weighing 155 pounds with brown hair and sharp hazel eyes. I never excelled in school, merely scraping by with mediocre grades in both high school and college. Yet, despite my lack of academic brilliance, I've always kept myself in good shape. At 42 years old, I work as a mid-level manager at a high-end fashion retail chain, a position that provides stability but little excitement. I grew up in the rougher parts of Chicago. My size and demeanor often invited trouble, but I learned early on that backing down was never an option. If you showed weakness, you were marked. I took my fair share of beatings, but I made sure to return them twice as hard. Over time, the fights became less frequent, but I never stopped training. Boxing was my escape, my anchor, until about 10 years ago, when I transitioned into mixed martial arts. The thrill of competition, the challenge, was everything to me. I'm married to Rebecca. She's also 42, a stunning brunette with an effortless elegance. We met in our first year at university. She was studying law, and we happened to take 2 classes together. At first, it was just casual conversation, but before we knew it, we were inseparable. Rebecca was the kind of woman everyone wanted to be around, yet she chose me. By our sophomore year, we had something real, something solid. We stayed together through graduation, after which she pursued law school while I landed a job at a local bank. We got married the summer after she graduated, and life was good. We had our own ways of keeping the spark alive. Role-playing, spontaneous getaways, nights of uninhibited fun. Rebecca was sharp, ambitious, and driven. She finished law school at the top of her class, while I built a steady career. When I got an offer from a prestigious corporation in New York, we took the plunge and moved to the city. The transition was rough. Rebecca worked relentless hours, sometimes 70 a week, while I handled most of the domestic duties. Cooking, cleaning, waiting up for her. She made as much as I did, if not more, and was on track for a major promotion. We were thriving financially, but as a couple, we were slowly crumbling. Our intimate moments became fewer, more distant. The connection we once had was starting to slip away. Then came Adrian. Tall, confident, effortlessly charming. Adrian was Rebecca's colleague, the man she spent more time with than her own husband. At first, it was the little things. Late-night texts, a certain glow when she talked about him, a laugh that wasn't meant for me. But the real gut punch came when I saw them together. His arm resting comfortably around her waist, her lack of resistance, the unmistakable tension between them. I confronted her that night. "Is there something you need to tell me?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. She hesitated before answering. "It's nothing, Ethan. Just a moment of poor judgment." But I had spent years reading people, and I knew when I was being lied to. "You don't risk a marriage over nothing, Rebecca." Tears welled in her eyes as she finally admitted it. An emotional entanglement, nothing physical. But I wasn't naive enough to believe that. My trust was broken. Determined to get the full story, I did what I never thought I'd do. I started tracking her. Calls, meetings, surveillance. The truth unraveled quickly. Late lunches at intimate restaurants, conversations filled with secrets, and the final betrayal, a night spent at a hotel. "Do you love him?" I asked her, my tone unreadable. Her response was the final nail in the coffin. "No, I love you." But that "but" was all I needed to hear. Rebecca begged, pleaded, swore it was a mistake, but some mistakes can't be undone. I filed for divorce. She fought for our marriage, but I had already made my decision. She lost everything: her home, her stability, her reputation. Adrian? He moved on, finding another woman to charm. Rebecca was left with regret, a consequence of the choices she made. As for me, I rebuilt my life, focused on my career, my health, and eventually, someone new. Claire. She was nothing like Rebecca. Loyal, kind, genuine. the kind of woman who valued trust over thrill. It was a slow burn, built on honesty rather than passion alone. Rebecca spent years trying to fix what she had broken, but some wounds don't heal. She had gambled everything for a fleeting thrill and lost. Meanwhile, I moved on, stronger, wiser, and unshackled from the weight of betrayal. Because some battles aren't meant to be fought. Some wars are won by simply walking away. I hoped Ryan wouldn't do anything foolish. Maybe he had just taken his celebration a little too far. Still, I kept my eyes locked on him, and he did the same. I smirked. He clenched his fists, stepping forward like a man ready for a fight. I remained calm. Physical confrontation was something I had never shied away from. It could break out at any moment, and I was always ready. Before things escalated, Ryan's bearded friend, Caleb, yanked him back, gripping his shoulders. Ryan tried to resist, but then their boss, Victor, snapped, "Enough! Take him away, Caleb!" Ryan hesitated, but eventually let himself be led off. By now, a small crowd had formed, watching the tension unfold. Elena, my wife, stepped between me and her colleagues, her voice steady but pleading. "David, there's nothing for you to be upset about. Nothing happened." Victor placed a hand on her shoulder and spoke in a calm, almost authoritative tone. "Elena, why don't you take the rest of the day off? Go home with your husband. It's been a stressful day, and tomorrow will be a fresh start." She nodded, then turned to me. "Come on, David. Let's go for a walk." I exhaled sharply and said, "I'm disappointed. I'll have to hit the gym later to clear my head." But I left with her. We walked through the city, the tension lingering between us, heavy and suffocating. She remained quiet, and I let the silence speak for itself. When we finally returned to our apartment, I grabbed 2 glasses of water and sat on the couch while she took a seat across from me. The space between us felt wider than it ever had before. "All right, Elena. Tell me everything, all of it." She hesitated. "There's not much to tell. You're overreacting. He just had his arm around me." I leaned forward, my jaw tightening. "Don't lie to me. I'm not an idiot, Elena. I know what I saw, and I know what I felt." Her face twisted, her breathing quickening. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "I didn't mean for things to look that way. And yet, they did. You left work early. Ryan was ready to fight me in the street. That doesn't just happen. He has feelings for you, doesn't he?" Tears welled in her eyes. "We all worked so hard on this project. Ryan and I became close. He asked me to celebrate with him alone, and I agreed." "Did you plan to bring him here?" She shook her head furiously. "No. He booked a room at the Grand Regent." My stomach twisted. "And the others?" "They were going too. They had another room booked." I let out a hollow laugh. "Is he married?" "Yes. He has a 2-year-old son." She sobbed again, covering her face. "And the rest? Is this kind of thing common?" She nodded weakly. "Victor turns a blind eye. Caleb and Olivia, they've been meeting in secret for months. Victor himself has done the same." "And you, Elena?" My voice dropped to a whisper. "Have you ever cheated on me before?" Her eyes widened. "No, just this. And it wasn't even... You stopped it before anything could happen." "That doesn't make it better," I said coldly. "You've shattered my trust, and trust, Elena, isn't something you can piece back together overnight." "I don't know what to say." She wiped her face. "I'll never let this happen again." "That's exactly what you say now. But what happens when you go back to work? Ryan isn't going to just forget. He won't give up. What's your plan?" She inhaled shakily. "I can't just quit. We need the money. I'm good at my job, and I'm up for a promotion." I studied her, my mind racing. "Then I need insurance." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "You're going to write a confession. Everything you've told me, in detail. You'll sign it." She stared at me in horror. "David, why?" Because I need leverage. Because I need to know you're serious about never letting this happen again. She nodded slowly, realization sinking in. You're threatening them. Not yet, I said, standing. But if anyone tries to cross that line again, I'll make sure they all know the consequences. And that was exactly what we did. After revealing everything, Mia and I went to a quiet little bistro for dinner. She loosened up over a bottle of red wine, and for a moment, things felt normal. But when we got home, reality settled back in. Upstairs, things escalated, but in the back of my mind, I was already planning my next move. That night, I copied her confession and placed it in 4 sealed envelopes, each marked personal and confidential. I wrote a note making it clear. If any further deception came to light, those envelopes would find their way to the right people. It wasn't about revenge. It was about control. By Saturday, I was at the gym, channeling my emotions into sparring and bag work. The guys noticed my intensity, but I brushed off their concerns. One of the trainers, Ava, a sharp and fit woman, asked if I was okay. I just smiled and told her, just working through some things. She offered to help if I ever needed it. I stored that information away for later. Later that day, I picked up a few gadgets from a security shop. Voice recorders, small and discreet. One went into Mia's purse, another under the couch. A remote-controlled activation ensured I wouldn't miss anything. We spent Sunday pretending. A movie, some ice cream, casual conversations, but my mind was elsewhere. By Monday, I handed Mia the envelopes to distribute at work. I had no doubts she would. I knew she wanted to keep things together just as much as I did, even if for different reasons. That evening, I was making dinner when she arrived home. How did they react? I asked casually. She hesitated. They were shocked, uncomfortable. Paul, though, he smirked and said, "Your husband's got a sharp mind." He's right, I muttered. She had no idea how much sharper it would become. Days passed, and I reviewed the recordings. Nothing immediately suspicious, but I knew better than to let my guard down. Trust wasn't something I could afford anymore. 4 weeks later, over 2 glasses of wine, I confronted her again. Mia, we need to talk. She looked nervous. I thought we were doing better? Maybe. But I still don't have all the answers. Why did you risk everything? She exhaled shakily. I don't know. I liked him. It felt exciting. I never thought you'd find out. That was all I needed to hear. You realize this can never happen again, right? One more mistake and we're done. I know, she whispered. I won't let it happen again. I nodded, but deep down, I wasn't sure I believed her. Not yet. Not until I had more proof. By the end of the week, I installed new tracking software on her phone. I wasn't taking any chances. Because while she claimed it was over, I knew temptation never truly disappears. I told Mia that the house was a gift to her and our future family, something I had earned through hard work. If things ever went south, we'd treat it as jointly owned. She agreed. We moved in, and soon after, she stopped taking her pills. 3 months later, we were expecting. Our son, Lucas, was born, and Mia returned to work 2 months later. I shifted into independent consulting, working from home while juggling trading and side projects. When Lucas turned 3, Mia became pregnant again, this time with twins, Lily and Noah. My mother moved in briefly to help, but as the kids grew, she left to enjoy retirement with my father. Mia thrived at her job, eventually making partner. Meanwhile, I embraced fatherhood, coaching Lucas's football games and managing the household. Mia was involved but consumed by work. Over time, I wondered if she was pulling away again. One night, she threw a party to celebrate her promotion. The event was grand, held at an upscale hotel and packed with her colleagues. I shook hands with familiar faces, including an old acquaintance, Adrian, now a partner himself. When the dancing started, Mia swayed in the arms of a younger man, Daniel, one of her associates. Fred, an old friend, sat next to me. Watch out for that one, he murmured, nodding toward Daniel. I've seen this pattern before. I watched them, weighing my options. They seemed professional, but so had others before. I danced with Mia afterward, keeping my thoughts to myself. That night I placed a recorder in her purse, just in case. When I later listened to the recordings, my worst fears were confirmed. Daniel wanted more than just a working relationship. The question was, would Mia let him? It was time for another talk, but this time I had leverage. I thought about our children as I spoke, but Ava's expression was filled with pain and frustration. She straightened her posture and took a deep breath. I won't deny it. I have feelings for Daniel, and I want to pursue them. Are you just going to let this happen? I had already prepared for this. Then we need to get divorced. This ends here. I thought we could talk about it before you made a decision. I love you, and I've tried everything to stop this before it got out of control. She let out a dry laugh. Thanks so much, really. But this is on you. Either you learn to live with it, or you move on. Have you even considered what your life will be like after this? Are you really asking me to let you have an affair? I scoffed. If you want to experience something new, I'll submit the divorce papers on Monday. Pack your things tonight. She hesitated, then panicked. No, wait, I was joking. I wouldn't actually ruin our marriage. You weren't joking, Ava. We both know that. I won't spend my life watching you sneak around. We're done. What about the kids? You'll see them as often as you do now, maybe more. They barely see you as it is. She grabbed her bag and stormed out. That night, I booked a motel room. By morning, I went to work, but I already knew what Ava would do. At noon, she met Daniel outside their office, laughing as they hailed a cab to his apartment. The moment she stepped inside, she was his. They spent the entire day in his bed, never stopping to think about the consequences. By evening, she returned home trying to act normal, but she had no idea I had already checked her location. Where were you this afternoon, Ava? She hesitated. Meeting a client. I shook my head. We have an app that tracks each other's phones. You weren't at work. You were at Daniel's. Any explanation? She paled. How could you do this to me? She whispered. How could I not? You've been lying to me for weeks, and now you come home and pretend nothing happened? We're finished. Ava begged, but I had already made up my mind. The divorce was clean. She didn't contest it, knowing she had no ground to stand on. She visited the kids on weekends, but they never saw her the same way again. As for Daniel, their affair burned out quickly. He moved on to another woman, leaving Ava to wonder if she had ruined her family for nothing. Meanwhile, I rebuilt my life. A year later, I met Naomi, a single mother who brought warmth back into my world. We blended our families, built a new home, and never looked back. Ava had played her game and lost. I had no sympathy left for her. Jake was relieved with how things had turned out. No regrets about leaving Lisa despite their long history. She had become distant, unfaithful, and consumed by work. But Naomi was different. She was an elementary school teacher, nurturing and kind, and he never felt the need to second-guess her loyalty. Their new family life was fulfilling, built on trust, something he never truly had with Lisa. Meanwhile, across town, Daniel found himself caught in a whirlwind. His wife of 17 years, Emily, had been spending increasing amounts of time with her newly divorced friend, Rachel. He had his doubts about Rachel's influence. She was reckless, always dating new men, and Daniel never liked her. But he trusted Emily, until one night when everything changed. Daniel arrived home to find Emily and Rachel in the kitchen, whispering. Rachel had her usual smug expression, while Emily looked nervous. Something was off. "Hey, sweetheart," Emily greeted him, standing up and offering a kiss. "Hey," he replied, watching her closely. "What's going on?" Emily hesitated. Daniel, there's something I need to talk to you about. He sat down, bracing himself. All right, let's hear it. She exchanged a glance with Rachel before speaking. I want to go out on a few dates. With Rachel. Just for fun. Daniel froze. Dates? Like with other men? Rachel jumped in before Emily could respond. It's nothing serious, Daniel. Just a little fun. It doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Think of it as exploring. He turned back to Emily. So what we have isn't enough for you? Her voice wavered. It's not that. I've never experienced anything else. Daniel clenched his jaw, feeling his world shift beneath him. You mean to tell me that after 17 years of marriage, you suddenly need to experience something new? Rachel smirked, but Daniel ignored her. His focus was on Emily. She looked conflicted, like she had already begun to regret even bringing it up. No, he finally said, voice steady. If you go through with this, we're done. Emily's eyes widened. Daniel, no, he cut her off. If you need to test other men, then you don't need to be married to me. Rachel rolled her eyes. You're overreacting. Am I? Daniel stood up, grabbing his keys. I'll be back in an hour. Think carefully about your choice. An hour later, Daniel returned home. Rachel was gone. Emily sat on the couch, her face streaked with tears. I made a mistake, she whispered. I don't want to lose you. He studied her for a long moment before responding. I hope you mean that, Emily. Because if you ever put me in this position again, I won't give you another chance. Emily nodded, wiping her eyes. I love you, Daniel. Then prove it. From that night on, things changed. Emily cut ties with Rachel, focused on their marriage, and worked to regain Daniel's trust. It wasn't easy, but over time, they found their way back. And as for Rachel, she moved on to her next bad decision, alone.